never been done before.
We the people tell the government what to do. It doesn't tell us. We the people are the driver. The government is the car. And we decide where it should go and by what route to do. We the people are free. And I hope we have once again reminded people that man is not free unless government is limited.
Hey folks, how are you today? Hope you're having a very fine sort of a Friday. If you've got your hand in your pocket and you're feeling a little bit of silver jangling around in it, you're probably a fairly happy person at the moment. You don't need me to tell you about it because I don't know enough about it to inform you enough. What I do know is a man who knows everything there is to know about the gold and silver bullion market at the moment. In fact, precious metals of all kinds. From Ainslie Bullion, the CEO, Michael Engerman. Good evening, mate. How are you?
Yeah, very well, Carl. Very well. Bit wet outside, so I'm probably glad that I'm in here at the moment with another big rain depression upon us. But no, I'm very well. But if you're a bit,
might be wet, but it's raining silver droplets inside at the moment by the look of it.
With regards to price, yeah, I mean, I'm just looking at some green candles happening right now as we speak. But no, we've had a good 24 hours. I think it just reminds me though, and to remind all your listeners that you just don't know when and how these things are going to happen.
Yeah.
The bigger picture. As I keep talking to you about, Carl, is the bigger picture is that we know where it's headed longer term. But in the intra-days and the intra-weeks is very hard to predict. But, yeah, it's good.
We often
Green's better than red.
We often get asked, when's it going to happen? When's it going to happen? And like you say, nobody can predict this. But this page basically sits permanently up on one of my screens the whole time, and I've been watching the price of silver now for the last week sit around $53.30 or thereabouts, and it hasn't really done a great deal of movement. We hook up this morning, you say, have you seen what it's done this morning? And all of a sudden it's gone up like $1.30 overnight.
Yeah, and that's my point. You just don't know when. There's had customers ringing today saying, "Oh, damn it, I wish I'd bought yesterday." But look, it's $1 on the total price. It's obviously would have been nice for that dollar to remain in the people's pockets if they bought yesterday, but focus on not the intra-day, intra-week charts. Look at the charts from a 10, 20-year point of view and look where it's heading. So that's the big piece that, that's the message for everyone to understand, unless you're trying to trade this, which is another whole, gamut of challenges for you to do. Don't worry about it.
So I'm just having a bit of a look at the gold-silver ratio, 88.78. It's wasn't all that long ago we were saying, it's 92 point this or 93 point that. What we're looking for is for that number to come down, aren't we? That's the number people should really be looking at. Yeah,
absolutely. So I'll just keep my phone on silent. No, absolutely. I mean, that is that number can still go down over time. The average is around 50. It's got down to as low as 16 in the past. So, when that happens, that means silver compared to gold is going to continue to climb in price. Now, let's hope that gold continues to go up as well, because that automatically means that silver is going to go up exponentially compared to gold. So,
the big marker in the in America was, and we'd been talking about it for some time, or the Americans had been talking about it for some time. When gold hits $3,000, it's 3,000 US an ounce. Well, it's at 3,055. It busted through it last week, 3,000, and hasn't shown any signs of going backwards.
No, not at all. No, it's a very strong market. There's a lot of commentators out there saying that, the 3.3, 3.5 sort of mark is where it's probably going to get to in this particular run. So you can work out if it goes up another $300 to $500, what will silver do? So, but then there's the same commentators are saying silver's going to have a greater percentage increase than that. So it's pretty bullish at the moment. There's not too many bears out there talking about precious metals coming backwards.
Yeah, right. Okay. So obviously we, the mum and dad, the single person like me who's got a little bit of silver tucked away, and I mean a little bit, we can't affect the market in any way, shape or form. But there are big players that have an influence on the market. Can you explain how that works?
Yeah, look, it's hard to explain because it's so confusing to understand it in the enormity that it is. but it absolutely has a lot to do with the leasing of these precious metals. So, and that's been, I know you've talked about it over the previous shows, and there's a lot, probably the mainstream media has stopped talking about it at the moment, but it's still occurring. There's still a repatriation of gold and silver back to the United States. And, these big central banks are asking for their gold back that has been typically leased out to other people for various reasons. And then that then flows into your ETFs and your paper traded derivatives of gold and silver. Now, we know that there's nothing backing those, and we've forever said that it's the physical form. If you don't hold it, you don't own it. And we may see that still play out. However, it's important to understand that there's all of that, and there's a lot of those different banks and businesses in Wall Street and around the world that do that. And that all influences the price. So there's a lot of information to try and grapple and to try and understand who's influencing, why is it going up, why is it going down. And again, it's probably that analogy of just, focus a little bit further out than in to understand the theme of the moment. The theme is that there's less of it happening and there's more repatriation happening, hence probably why we're seeing an upward movement contributing to that, not wholly and solely. There's lots of different factors, but it's contributing to it as well.
Demand, or the forward projection for demand, particularly coming out of China for silver, mainly they're saying for electronics production and solar production, outstrips the current amount of silver being mined and delivered to the market at the moment. Now, I'm not sure that gold is the same way. Can you explain to me how something like, I watched this Discovery show, Parker Schnabel and his crew, these, gold rush, they're mining in the Yukon and all that sort of stuff. And they're pulling out kilos and kilos and kilos of gold. So do these people have enough gold to influence the market and the price, because they're bringing in whatever they bring in, how many thousands of ounces over the course of a season? Are they players in the market, or are they simply just taking what they find and getting it turned into bars and selling the bars to, proper refineries? I don't know how it works.
Yeah, I mean, look, neither do I. I mean, I don't know exactly every single miner, and whether it's a mum and dad type miner fossicking in Ballarat to the actual the Kalgoorlie type mines, and they're all around the world, those types. There is obviously the World Gold Council does a pretty good job in summarising where we're at with production. It's probably not production, it's the wrong word, but mining of the material and the ounces and kilos that produces, both gold and silver and platinum, they've got a good handle on. And a good handle on what the demand is. And central banks has obviously been the leader of the demand of recent times. They know that we're, with the China piece that you spoke about before and other demand, because they're not the only ones, but they definitely have, I suppose, far greater than anyone else buying it but India's still doing it. There's other countries around that are still buying. So that's when okay, the amount coming out of the ground is X, the amount of demand for it is Y, we're in deficit here. Well, blind Freddie, you just have to look at your fruit and vegetable shop to understand when carrots go to $4 a kilo, when they've been sitting at $1 a kilo for so long, and they all of a sudden go to $4 a kilo, why they're at $4 a kilo, because there's not enough of them. So they have to put the price up to slow the carrots down. Well, that's no different when it comes to gold and silver. Supply and demand, Finance 101 says if there's less product available to buy, people will pay more for it. And then and in the markets, the traded markets, it just keeps ratcheting up and up and up. And things that we're hearing is that, people are paying over spot for mined product. And those type of things happen because people are, just like you, Carl, you might be bidding against me for the mines, wherever they are in the world. Maybe it's in Africa and we're both bidding for the same gold to come out of there. He who owns that mine is sitting there going, great, well, put your best case forward and I'm happy to sell it to you. But then what happens is that flows then into all of the retail at the end, because everyone is then paying more for that product.
So using the Australian Gold Reserve as an example, would the people, and there aren't many, who have a lease on the Australian Gold Reserve to mine the gold out of there, do they have to have something of a contract or something with the government to say we're going to sell it to... I guess what the question I'm asking badly 3 times now is, how does it get from somebody, say, working in the Australian Gold Reserve to a gold bar that you can sell?
Yeah, that's the refiners themselves. They fit in the middle. So those businesses have been formed to purely satisfy the barred demand. So the bullion demand. So the big bars to the small coins to the all of those particular products. They sit in the middle and they have a demand. So that someone from a central bank will place an order with the likes of us or others, and they will say, I want 100 tonne or I want 1,000 tonne delivered over this period of time. They will then negotiate the price, and then that particular order is on its way to being fulfilled. And then you go backwards and you start looking at the mines that you're going to get that product from, and you start negotiating with the mines to get the product to fill the order.
Okay, so it's actually a competitive process then from the refiner's perspective based on demand.
Absolutely. Yeah, that's absolutely right. And demand always plays.
And doesn't own any. The Australian government doesn't own any mines, do they?
Not that I know of, not that I'm aware of, and maybe your listeners might know of some, but I don't believe that the government is in mining.
Yeah,
they'd do it pretty poorly if they were.
My word, they would. But there'd be a lot of paperwork involved. They'd be very safe. So, Michael, obviously the price now sitting at, I'm still on US dollars, $54.62 for an ounce of silver, the spot price at the moment. Now, people, like you've said, have said, oh, look, I should have seen the price yesterday and I should have jumped on it yesterday. Well, the fact is it may or may not jump another whatever amount before tomorrow. It might go back a little bit, but like you say, if you look at the overall graph over, not this week, not this month, but look at the overall graph, you will see that it is always on the incline. It's going up, and you're not going to lose. So who, like me, don't have $54.62, but I've got $26. Can I come in and buy, or can I go online and buy something with my $26 from you? Maybe my Ainslie Saver account needs a top up.
Yeah, that's the first thing. Absolutely, you've just hit the nail on the head. Ainslie Saver would be a perfect place to start. Otherwise, you're looking at the fractional coins, so your half-ounce silvers and the like. But there's not a lot because of the price of silver. When the silver was at that Aussie dollar around $28, $30 an ounce, which was less than a year ago. Remember that. So it's really exponentially exploded in the last 12 months. But when it was around that price, you were able to buy more silver for your dollar. But just remember that we keep saying this over and over again. Has silver and gold actually got more expensive? Or is it the Aussie dollar is getting worth less? So you need more dollars to buy the same product. You need more dollars to put fuel in your car. You need more dollars to buy a meal. You need more dollars. Absolutely. So it's my belief that our dollar is worth less rather than the fact that gold and silver keep going up, because the inflation that we're under, and it's that this product continues to go up over history. I mean, we always say it, and I think I've said it before, so excuse me for saying it again, but a 1 ounce gold bar back in the Roman times could buy you a really good suit.
Yeah, wow. Yeah.
And a 1 ounce gold bar right now buys you a really good suit.
Yep.
So, that's the indicator of where it's going, and it doesn't actually change. It's just that our dollar is getting worth less more and more and more.
Are you seeing pressure on the, I guess you've and your team follow all the markets. Are you seeing pressure on the stock market in areas that you haven't seen it before at the moment?
Yeah, I think there's things bubbling away there that, look, there's, I was only talking to a gentleman yesterday just about the Northern Rivers, Northern New South Wales area with property prices. They are in free fall. Like, they are literally, there is people trying to sell their properties that they bought in the highs, and they are receiving millions and millions and millions of dollars discount on the price that they paid for those as offers to sell their properties. No one's paying them anywhere near what they bought them for. So, there is areas like that all around the country. It's not just the northern New South Wales area, that's the bordering Queensland. Is areas all over the country. Some pockets aren't experiencing it as bad, but there's absolutely hemorrhaging when it comes to property prices in some parts of the country right now.
And I guess, we've been hearing for a while that the rest of the country is going to catch up with that. Property prices all over the country are expected
to. Definitely a belief we've got that, we believe that things are not as rosy. They're not reporting it, so most people aren't aware of it. But we all still hear about the builders that are going broke and businesses that are going bust and all these ghost businesses that are operating out there. There is, I think, more pain to come. But, it was predicted many, many years ago that we were going to eventually get to something like this because the spending is out of control. The accountability is no longer there. And that's generally why people are flocking to. And another reason that gold and silver is going up, because it does go up in times of uncertainty.
Absolutely. And it seems to be the safe haven, always has been, for institutional investors and all that sort of thing. Nothing safer than gold.
You just look at the central banks. Why are central banks continuing to buy at an outrageous amount all the time? Like, they've got a lot of smart people that work for them and a lot of smart accountants and, those types that are looking at the history about what happens and when it happens and what you've got to do to hedge against those times. There's a reason they're buying the amounts that they are. So just do what the smart ones are doing and imitate those guys. I think you'll be all right.
Michael, thank you for taking some time out of your day to explain what's going on and give us a bit of a heads up. I know it's a busy time for you, so I won't hold you up too long. I guess the takeaways from this are, folks, if you aren't already, but you are considering getting into the bullion market, then the Ainslie Saver is a great way to do it. And you can simply go online to ainslieBullion.com.au, and that'll be the page you see. When you see that link pop up, click it, or you can go to VLHQ.com.
And can I just jump in on that, Cart, before I go? Sure. We have had some issues with, not ourselves, but some banking providers not allowing to do repetitive pay IDs. So you have to actually physically do it every time manually. That fix is coming, and I'm hoping that in a couple of weeks we can talk about then enabling all of our customers a BSB and account number, which then will enable them to set up the reoccurring payments weekly, fortnightly, monthly. Some banking providers are allowing it already, but some aren't. So we're trying to make sure that we have an answer with the Saver program that every person out there can have an automatic setup, an automatic transfer. So we'll talk about that in the future shows.
Absolutely, mate. All right, well, stay out of the rain. Enjoy your Friday, and I hope the weekend, although it's going to be rain, will still be filled with kids' sport unless it gets too bad.
Well, you would have seen me with an umbrella tomorrow, I'm sure. I would have been standing there trying to keep out of that rain. So,
absolutely. All right, Michael, thank you very much. Appreciate you taking your time today and joining us and bringing us up to speed with what's going on.
Yeah, good on you. Thanks, Ed. All the best.
Hi, are you passionate about supporting independent media and social events? Voice of Freedom is dedicated to bringing you the latest happenings and things that matter. But we can't do it without your help. By donating, sponsoring, or becoming a member, you're not just supporting our mission. You're joining a community that values transparency and engagement. Your contributions allow us to continue producing high-quality content that informs and inspires. Visit VOFHQ.com to make a donation or explore sponsorship or membership opportunities. You can even donate using crypto. Together, we can amplify voices that deserve to be heard as we continue to create a vibrant platform for social change. Go to VOFHQ.com. Help us to help you by joining us and making a difference today.
Oh, got to put myself back up there. And I'll put myself back up there. How are you, folks? Evening all. You may have gathered that was pre-recorded. I'm sorry for the audio at my end, and I'm hoping, fingers crossed, that it's not distorted now. For some reason or other, these recordings through this system do something weird to my audio and make it distorted. But I do have a gentleman who tends to help me out in times when technicalities interrupt me. Let's say good day to the Waving Wonder. How are you, buddy?
Good afternoon or evening, Carl. How are you?
How is my audio? Is it sounding all right?
Yeah, it's a little low at the moment. You might have turned it down, but when you first came on, it was perfect.
Okay, all right. Well, I might just talk up a bit, but it's got something to do with the algorithm. When you save those recordings, it does something to my audio at my end anyway, and obviously boosts it to a point where it's not a great deal of fun. We're going to have a talk about voting tonight, but in case you're wondering, folks, the current price for silver $54.55 and $4,883.84 for gold. Won't be long before it busts through the 5,000 Australian barrier, and the gold silver ratio has gone up just fractionally from when we were speaking this morning. It's now at 89.52. But as we said in that chat, keep watching this space because it's going to get very interesting. So let's get on to the second topic of tonight, although there's a couple of people who did have some questions. Now, let me just start a couple of those. Sunflower was one of them. God love you, woman. I hope you are doing well and you're pulling through your pleurisy and other ailments, the pneumonia and everything else. So I trust that you're going okay. You wanted to know, would the government, can they access an Ainslie account? I guess that would depend on what the account is. And my understanding is anything that is held by Ainslie would require a warrant or some sort of compelling governmental oversight paperwork before they would be allowed into anything at all. Taylor raised an interesting point here before when we were talking about the price, and that very shortly, when I say it hits $5,000 for an ounce of gold, the trade has to be reported at $5,000, whether you go out and buy, $5,000 worth of silver or $5,000 worth of gold. It has to be reported above 5,000, I believe it is. So you can get sort of 4,999 and keep it semi-quiet from the government, but you do have to present yourself to go and collect it, or you get it sent to your address under your name. There's a paper trail. But Ainslie are under no obligation to provide it to anybody unless they are court ordered to do so. So that's my understanding of how all that works. Stu, I saw your comment, mate. I loved it. It's Airshow weekend at Avalon. That'll be a big weekend in Melbourne for the Freemasons. He went there yesterday with his dog, had a blast, but on the way out, the coppers decided that his dog wasn't allowed in. The management, the military had no problems with it. Typical Vic Pole, all over it. Hot, hot, hot. Protect and serve. Is that what it? No, there's no protect and serve. There's punish and coerce. No protect and serve. Somebody else had. Oh, yeah, Baz, you wanted to know if the fake election had been called yet. Yes, the fake government has called the fake election for May the 3rd. And I believe, not that I could stomach watching it, but I believe Albo almost shed a tear while he was doing the deed and telling the country that we're going to suffer through the next, is it 5 or 6 weeks of incessant bullshit advertising on radio, TV, and the internet, plugging all sorts of lies that we're not sure any party is actually going to pull through on, much less make good on. And tonight I thought, well, I'll get the two people I know best to have a talk about voting. Both have been involved in federal and both have been involved in federal elections, and neither of them have ever managed to make it into the federal parliament. Darren Bergwerf, good evening.
G'day, Carl. How are you? How you going, Vince?
How are you, Darren?
This is going to be an interesting night, ladies and gentlemen. We're coming from two very different positions. So, gentlemen, I'm going to sit in the middle this evening and, I don't know, be the debate moderator, shall we say. Let me just get a coin out so we can flip to see who goes first.
Just to be fair, so that people know, Darren and I both know each other pretty well, and even though we don't agree, we're still mates, and that's how it works. We have good discussions about it.
We can have differences. I think you're going to find some. So, gentlemen, here's my 20-cent piece. I am tossing. Who's calling?
Heads.
Darren.
Heads. Heads.
Darren's heads. It was tails. Vince, first or last?
Last.
Right. All right, ladies
Well,
and
I'm
gentlemen,
sure we're going to go
Darren
back and
Bergwerf this
forth.
evening.
I'm sure we're going to go
Well,
back
we
and
might do a
forth,
bit of that too, but you've got to have an opening statement, haven't you?
Yeah, okay. We're going to have an opening statement. Look,
All right.
I'll try and keep it brief, and that's a challenge for me, as you know. But my opening statement is yes, I have taken part in 3 different elections or selections, a federal, a state, and a by-selection only last year. Now, this is as far as I'm concerned, this whole journey is about educating ourselves and gaining knowledge and moving forward, not backwards. So when the knowledge I had when I first started this, after 5 years of following Trump and then switching my attention to Australia, was all very basic. It wasn't much on history, on anything at all. So when they mandated the jabs in this country, I already knew what was going on. Obviously, I decided that I got angry in late 2021 and did some marches. Right, I probably went to 5 rallies in Melbourne, the big one over the Westgate Union office, and the 20th of November worldwide rally, and we had some massive rallies. And at the time, that's all I knew. That was about the knowledge that I had, and the only thing I could think that we could do. Rolling into 2022 and Canberra, another rally, I came back from there and I thought, okay, I've got to step up, and maybe we need to get someone in there or a political aspect. And I ran in the federal election, which was absolutely crazy, really. Now, and I said from that point, from day one, I'm not here to get a seat at the table. I had no interest in having a seat at the table. I was there to tip the table upside down. And that's been my attitude all the way through. Over the last 3 years, I've gained an immense amount of knowledge. And I've moved so far because I dedicate my life to learning. And I reach out, and I have so many mentors in my life. And I've moved way past the idea that that there's a political answer to this. And I said this even before the state election, and I moved away from it with my video at the start of 2023 that's on My Place Australia for 20 minutes, that we don't need to support the system. We don't need to fight the system. We need to develop our own system. Now, obviously, late last year, the year before, Carl, as you know, I put my hand up as a hypocrite, and I'm going to have one last crack, not to get a seat, but for the platform to get an awareness and some knowledge into the general public. But even since then, which is already 12 months ago, the knowledge that I've gained about the criminality of who we are and what they are is gone to a whole new level. And at the end of the day, a vote in this upcoming federal election is a vote for the United Nations. It is cut and dry. For those that aren't aware, in 1948, after World War II, in 1945 this happened, the League of Nations got changed to the United Nations. And the 1948 Nationality and Citizenship Act basically tied us under the trusteeship of the United Nations. So for those that aren't aware, the bankruptcy trustee to Australia and all the territories that were involved in World War II is the United Nations. So the people that are running our country through our government system is the United Nations. So for all those people that have been talking about exiting the WHO and exiting the United Nations and all the rest of it, by taking part and facilitating in the crime, once you know there is a crime, then you are a criminal. It's black and white. There's no ifs, buts, or maybes about it. It's that simple. So all I'm trying to say, I'm not saying to anybody what you're doing by voting or supporting somebody is right or wrong. Okay, that's not where I'm coming from. I'm coming from giving people the knowledge to make an informed decision that most people didn't have with the vaccinations. Okay, and we lambasted those people for taking that jab, right, under pressure. So if we are aware of the crime and we're aware of the situation and we still support it and we know that system is, as far as I'm concerned, in my opinion, a child trafficking, money laundering, basically organised crime that are racketeering with all the courts, all the police establishments, all the so-called overseers of the ASIC and TGA, sorry, AFCA, APRA, all of them. As far as I'm concerned, it's my strong opinion that the whole system is an organised crime unit, right, that is forcing usury and slavery against the people and genocide. And I cannot, knowing that, there are so many acts that are in the Criminal Code Act 1995, the Crimes Act 1914, in our Constitution, that is treason against the Commonwealth, right? It is an act against the Commonwealth, and we are the Commonwealth. So knowing that, I cannot take part in it. And but knowing also that people don't know that, I can comprehend and appreciate that they were where I was 3 years ago, and they believe that that's a step forward. So I will support people that believe that, and no problem. But me personally, I can't. And that was short. Okay. Sorry.
No. I nearly caught myself out. I was going to say something. I'm not saying anything yet. Vince, your turn. Opening statement, please.
Okay. So with everything that Darren just said, you're going to not believe this, but I don't actually disagree with what he said. It is a corporate crime. It is a corporate business. It is whatever that's going on there. And for everybody who's out there that's looking at it and understands this, should also put in mind this idea, right? If we're in a courthouse and you've been convicted of a crime and you're sitting in the jury, do you want to allow that corporate government to stack the jury against you? Right? Because nobody wants to stand up and go in on that jury and say, hang on a minute, I'm here for the honest man. I'm here to make sure it does happen the right way. Right? If not voting, by not voting, you're basically saying, I'm going to let them stack the jury. I'm going to let them do what they want. Right? If we can put some people in there that will act as a filter, a way of limiting things, even though we know they're totally corrupt, do we just step aside and let them do whatever they want because we don't want to have a say? That's where the difference is here. You can know full well, and yes, maybe we are contributing to a crime, right? But we're certainly not doing anything if we don't. We can't stop them. We can't enforce it. We can't do anything at this stage. So isn't it better that we limit their capabilities by doing something, putting freedom parties in, getting some sort of resistance within their own system, right? You don't go putting an undercover, cops go and put undercover people into organisations so that they can get the evidence to take them out. But if no copper wanted to go undercover, there'd be no evidence. There'd be no resistance. So that's where I stand with it. I agree with everything else Darren said. It's 100% correct. But whether we step aside and let them have their go and just let them go free, that's up to us.
Accepting your point, and let's call your point the status quo, because it's essentially what we currently have.
No, not exactly.
Well, we have the ability to put people, to elect people into that place to represent us.
True.
What has our history been like? And I've got to say the history of people electing good people into Parliament is pretty strong. But the history of good people going to Parliament and turning a different way into party politicians and that sort of thing is quite evident. So I would argue that in your scenario, yes, it can work, but we have to get the right people elected and enough of them. Now, we've proven in the freedom movement so far that it's very difficult to get enough of us, we the people that actually believe we understand the real truth of what's going on, to stand up in public and convince their next door neighbour of the truth. And we're asking essentially, however many seats there are, lower and upper house in Australia, that many people to stand up and represent their people in their area, their town. How do we know they're not going to be corrupted by the power that goes to Parliament or comes with Parliament?
We don't. Right? That's where it's a matter of trust. It's a matter of trying to know the person, their history, and their bits and pieces. We can't tell which way any individual person will go. We don't know what they have in the background that can be used for blackmail, etc., and so on. But once again, the chances of having someone in there that's actually going to do the right thing, and let's face it, over the last few years, we are starting to get people in there that are starting to make a difference, that are speaking up for Australia, even if they're still part of the conspiracy, their mindset's in somewhat the right direction, right? But they can do as much as they want in the right direction, but if we don't vote them in, they got Buckleys and none, and then the government's got complete rule. I mean, as far as I'm concerned, the lower house is a waste of time. It's going to be Lib, Labor, Teals, Greens, right? Because everybody's been trained with that two-party preferred. The Senate, however, is where we can start to make a difference. We can put the filters in there. If we take away the Lib and the Labors and the Greens power in the Senate, then we have much more power, because that's the filter. Any law's got to go past the Senate first. Right? So my idea would be, let's get the Senate working the right way by putting independents, parties that are leaning in the right direction to at least limit the capabilities of this criminal organisation.
Darren, if we wake up on May 4th and discover that 15% of those eligible to vote actually turned up to vote, what do you think happens?
If how many turned up to vote?
15%.
Oh shit, that's a low number. My ambition is to see people not even getting their name crossed off around 35% in this election or greater, and the primary vote for both Liberal and Labor dropping well below 30%. To me, that would be a massive step forward for the country. And I'd put it to anyone that's thinking that getting an extra 1 or 2 or 3 senators in to the I don't even know what to call it, actually. Let's just call them senators, so-called senators. I'd turn your minds back to last year when they had there was a bill in Parliament, I think it was around freedom of speech or something along those lines, or disinformation, whatever it was. And we had, at the time, I think I was out doing a speech at Williamstown, and I think we had 3 or 4 Liberal senators cross the floor to get this bill over the line. And it was perfect timing, no? Okay, I might be out of order there, but from my memory, that's some Liberals or some people crossed the floor to get the bill approved. And this is the quandary we're in. This happened to Hanson back in the 90s or early 2000s, where basically both sides of Parliament ganged up to shut her down when she was getting 20% of the vote. Like, everyone was really excited. I remember I got a poster signed by her at Camberwell Town Hall, and I thought this was great. And I was only young, in my 20s, I think, and and they locked her up and they did what they did, and they shut her down. And as far as I'm concerned, she's a sellout. So what people got to comprehend is that the oligarch and the duopoly, if you get 1 or 2 extras in, all they're going to do is cross the floor, and they will continue on their merry way. I think, and what I've said, and I know it's going to be a contentious issue, that we need more pain. And I said this at the vote no at the Voice rally in Melbourne a year and a half, whenever it was, September year before last or last year, that there's a third option, and that's not the vote at all. Because at the end of the day, we need these tyrannical things to come in. The reason we've got an extra maybe 2, 3, 4,000, 5,000 people in the eastern suburbs rising up against the council and their overreach is because they're making decisions that are actually, bringing themselves down. So why interrupt an enemy that's bringing themselves down? And to me, let them do it. If we concentrate on building the new and we don't engage and we have a massive vote of no confidence in the whole system by nobody getting their names crossed off, nobody paying their fines, which is only $20 anyway, then we're sending a message that we're done and we've got to actually move forward away from this system. And if we support it by voting, we're accepting their authority, we're accepting their system, we're accepting the criminality, and we're committing crimes against our Commonwealth, because they are it's basically the UN. Whether you like it or not, our government is run by the UN.
All right. Let's say people have heard your message, have heard Ricardo Bosey's message, and we get 60% of Australian eligible voters not turning up to vote. What happens when we wake up?
We don't.
Good question. Go, Vince.
We don't wake up on May 4?
No, because effectively they will fine 60% of the people for not voting, and then they'll use the 40% of the vote they've got to form their government. There is no limitation. There is no, we must have 50% or more people vote. Before in the Constitution, there's nothing written in law that I'm aware of. So they will just, they count them as null votes. Right. Good revenue raising, I'll give them that. But effectively, there is no reason. And for your confirmation, the disinformation information bill was actually never presented through the Senate because they knew they were going to lose, because the Liberal Party and the Independents teamed up, which gave enough numbers to thwart the bill. When we come to the social bill for children under the age of 16, the Liberal Party and the Labor Party joined forces to put that one through. So even if the Independents had said something, it wouldn't have mattered. So the fact that One Nation didn't even vote really didn't matter, because there was no way they were going to win. However, if we can take out a lot of Liberal and Labor and Teals or Greens out of the Senate and fill them with other parties, and we've got plenty out there, I Heart, One Nation, the People's Voice Party for General Randick. If we can start filling those seats in the Senate so that there's a majority of independents, then even if the Lib and Labor team up, they still will not have enough power to pass the bill. This is why I say the Senate is the best chance. So forget the lower house, but if we can fill the Senate.
Just hang on a second. I would say Darren would argue, and without putting words in your mouth, Darren, a 60% no-show vote is a very strong argument to take to military and police to say there is no authority for any real government.
They won't do it. You saw what they did in Victoria. You saw how rough they were, how much they obeyed what the government said, right? They won't do it.
Yep, I agree.
Right. Eureka is the only option you have there.
I disagree. That was 3 years ago. Actually, it was 4 years ago, in 2021 when that took place. I went to a Casey Council meeting to drop off a heap of information that I'd printed out, 400 pages for Greenie to hand out. That they locked down the same night that Aidan McLindon, the mayor of Whittlesea, was locked out of his council chambers for their meeting. And I spoke to Channel 9, Channel 7, somebody from the Libertarian Party, and I also spoke to, in four different conversations, 2 security guards and 3 lots of police. And I red-pilled them pretty hard. And they listened to every word. They appreciated what I told them. I asked them why they weren't arresting Dan Andrews and Brett Sutton for terrorism, because what they did at 11 o'clock every single morning on mainstream media was terrorise the community, and explain to them that, it's been proven that this thing is a bioweapon. He's forced you to take, this guy had 3 jabs, And I said, it's killing millions of people around the world. Why aren't you arresting these people? Now, these police officers were very receptive. They listened to the whole conversation. There is change afoot in the mindset of the police. We just had a 80% no vote of confidence in Shane Patton, which we know he's part of the evil cabal. Well, we believe, I should say. I won't say we know, but we believe he's part of the evil cabal. And the police, which if we flip the police, we flip the whole thing pretty much. That's a big statement, yes, I know, but the police are actually really starting to change. There's 800 Victorian police left last year. So it is an information war as much as a spiritual war. And while I find this upcoming election and what we're preparing for, I had Doris here all afternoon today, we're preparing documents like the union do at every election, whether it be federal or state. The union are there handing out their union information, and they're allowed to do that. So I see an opportunity to hand out information packs to the public and start to inform them of what they're taking part in. And if they choose to still go ahead, that's okay. We're not trying to change your mind. All we're trying to do is give you the information. So there's an opportunity here to use, once again, this federal election, not so much as a platform to get anyone in, as far as I'm concerned, but to spread more information and knowledge. Because it is the court of public opinion that is going to win this war. It's not the Supreme Court. It's not the magistrates' court. It's the court of public opinion. And like I've said from day one, when the coppers coming down our laneway in 2021 when we're in lockdown, it's not a revolution, which he thought we were actually doing. I said, this is an evolution, mate. All right, we're winning the hearts and the minds of the people. And this is continuing, and I believe that not voting, but knowledge and empowering our communities with the correct knowledge. And once they know the criminality of being involved in supporting the United Nations election, I think they're going to start to come around.
A lot of people feel pretty much the same as you, Darren, although I don't know that the lack of support being seen in the chat for the idea of voting is any indication that people aren't going to go and vote. I seem to see that one of the biggest questions is how much the fine actually is. I think in Queensland it's $100. It's not 20, so it's a bit more significant. $55 in New South Wales, somebody posted up. And of course, if you don't pay the fine, it gets interest and all those other bits and pieces, but only if you open it. The best advice is to return to sender and, write something polite on the front like, sorry, have no contract, don't know who you are, don't know what that is.
Yep.
Send it off
and
to somebody
just
who
watch
cares.
them just basically then strip you of your license and your ability to have a registered vehicle. You know exactly how that feels, Carl, right?
Well, it can happen, certainly. But if you're going to push it, then you push the envelope the whole way.
That's really irrelevant. Let me give you a scenario, right? Let's say that you need to have a vote on something, and the vote says that we need 60% at least vote yes to get this thing over the line. So we have 100 people. Out of that 100 people, we have 60% that decide not to vote, right? So when we count up what's left, 40 votes, out of that election, we only had 40 out of the 100, but they got 100% of the votes. Do you understand what I'm saying? Mm-hmm. Right? 100%. They got well above their 60 they required, because 60% of the people thought it wasn't worth even the issue of voting. So it's like, here, take the keys to the car. Because I don't care. I'm not going to do anything about it. I'm not going to put people in to stop you. I'm not going to have a decent cop that's going to stand there who's, was a decent cop, but he got corrupted. Or B, he is a good cop because he left. Can't do anything once he's left. Right? So you think about it. Every vote that is not given is a vote lost, and it is a vote given to the parties in power. That is no resistance at all. If we're going to fight, you just don't fight a battle on one front here. You have to fight it on multiple. The more we can slow down the corporate government by putting barriers in their way, the better. Yes, we continue to educate people. We continue to tell them. We continue to try and find ways to get at them from the other side. But literally not voting, beautiful cop-out. I'm sorry. Don't ever sit on my jury, right? Because you're obviously never going to give me a chance to be proven innocent. That's why I look at it in that. It's just a logical thing. If they don't have resistance in the votes, then they have been given 100% of the votes. They can do whatever they want. They can pass whatever law they want. They just go ram it straight through the Senate because there's nothing there to stop them. Nothing at all. So think about that.
Beautiful. I say let them ram it through the Senate. Let them bring more tyranny. And the faster they do it, the quicker we get to the bottom. And I've been saying this for a couple of years. And I said this in the disinformation bill when I did a bit of research. It only took me 30 seconds to safari how many people in Australia we had between the age of 18 and 25 when they were talking about the young people and all the rest of it. And there's 3.6 million. So, like again, why stand in the way of an enemy that's destroying themselves? The quicker that they roll out the tyranny, the better as far as I'm concerned. Because in this country, we are still the silver spoon privileged generations that have never had communism in their country, although we've got it now, but not real communism like Europe have had. We haven't had the same wars that other countries have had on our land, and we have had it too easy for too long. We need, in my opinion, as much as I don't want it, we need more pain in this country for people to get to their line in the sand, to realise that they need to step up, stop going to the footy, and actually do something for their country, right? We're not going to do that by having little wins here and all of a sudden, you know, Aiden out at Whittlesea gets a couple of rainbow flags removed from the kinder, and people think, oh, look at that, the system's working for us. Let's try and vote someone in. We are in this loop, and I've been saying this since Don Chip tried to keep the bastards honest in the 70s, okay? Here we are, 50 years later, still trying to get somebody in there to keep the bastards honest. I mean, what's the definition of insanity? He's doing the same thing over and over and over again, right? And expecting a different result. We need to change it up. We need to take back our power, not by giving our power to them, not by believing that there is someone better to represent ourselves than ourselves. Educate our people and our countrymen and women to give them the skills to be able to self-govern, self-determine, and we build our economies and we build everything outside of their system. It's not that hard. It's been done before. They're doing it through Africa at the moment. Africa are kicking out the French, the Americans, the bloody British, right? They're taking back their mines. They're forging their own gold. They're refining their own oil to make petrol. They're putting, avocado and tomato processing plants. They're actually taking back, saying, I don't want your aid anymore. I want you out of my country, and we're going to step up and we're going to take control back. This is the kind of thing that should be happening around the world. And the people that are in power in this country at the moment will not allow that. And if we think we're going to change that system anytime soon in the next 20 years, I think we're kidding ourselves. We can build our own system way quicker than that if we get more people on the same page.
I agree. We still need to build our systems. We still need to do what we've got in the background. Darren, you know full well I'm in agreement with that. I'm just in a disagreement with us saying, okay, here's our resistance. Let's just throw 1.2 million people straight in as cannon fodder, right, and let them get destroyed completely when we had another way of doing it by doing surreptitious little exercises that help limit their capability. I mean, honestly, we would have a information bill right now if it hadn't been for the fact that the libs said no. It would have been rammed through, just like the under-16 one was. right? So the harder we can make them for them to do stuff, the better off I think we are. And if that means we play a little game of let's try and put some decent people in the Senate, then we play that little game. It's just one little exercise. Why we continue to build support for what we know, educate the people for what we know, right? However, we could just say, okay, that's fine. Let's let you go as full steam ahead while we try to catch up. No, we don't need. We need to be limiting them as much as possible while we keep moving forward. They have the weight, they have the energy, they have the mass. We are not there yet, but we are educating people to get there. But in the meantime, if we educate them to just ignore the government, because they're very much worth ignoring, I'll tell you that now. But if we just say, no, you go do what you want in your court, you go do what you want with your jury, you stack it as much as you want, you will pick anybody out of the crowd that we like, throw you in jail, and there'll be nobody to protect you because you own everything. And you made a rule that said you cannot post something on Facebook. Right? Because we didn't bother to stop them where we could. Right? Just saying, I don't believe in you does not stop them, because they have the enforcement arm. They have the power. They have that stuff. So we still need to build everything that we are trying to build. But being ignorant and letting them have total control, that is stupid.
I think a point, and we're not going to keep going for too much longer, but I think one of the points that hasn't been addressed tonight is the expectation of the public in a time frame. I think when I speak, generally speaking, we, the freedom-loving and awake folks, have a much faster timeline in mind than the rest of the world is able to keep up with. And while I appreciate both sides of the arguments put out this evening, the timeline, I think, is a crucial point that needs to be taken into both arguments' account, because, as you can see by Tony's comment, the pressure is rising in the pot. If we can't figure a solution Vince's way, if we can't figure a solution Darren's way, there is really only one other solution. Isn't there, really?
What is that?
Well, I won't be stating it.
Insurrection or something? Yeah.
It would. Thank you. You go ahead and get me in trouble then. Good on you.
Yeah, no worries.
Yes, that is an uprising of some kind. And why we would not, at this point, advocate anything like that.
Okay. Can I just interrupt for a second?
Is that the only solution?
Can I just interrupt with something that's of interest? Darren, you're all about making it being better for the government to come down so hard on the people that they hurt and they feel it. Just a little fact that comes out for your interest. According to the Grattan Institute 2022, the Great Australian Nightmare Report from 1981 to 2021, home ownership rates for 25 to 34-year-olds in the tourist lowest household income quintiles fell from 57% to 28%. So what that's saying is that 25 to 34-year-olds, only 28% of them in Australia can now afford to buy a house. I ask you, are they not already hurting enough?
No.
If you take the 45 to 54-year-olds, right, that declined from 71% down to 53%. I mean, what do they have to be living on the streets? Is that enough?
Yeah.
When do they? Yeah, but how do they resist when they've been demoralised beyond belief?
Well, look, I'm of the opinion, and that was always of the hope that there'd be some kind of safety net in the so-called plan that was happening. My brother, on the other hand, was of the opinion that this needs to be biblical, and we need a depression to reset humanity, because we've been talking about this since we've been in business since the late 90s through the early 2000s, that we need a world war. We need something to reset humanity. We don't learn unless we get hit by a sledgehammer. That's just human nature. And so I do truly believe that we are still a privileged country, and I'm, I might be speaking, and people might say that that's bullshit. You're not living my life, and that's true. But there's the majority of people in this country still going to the footy. They're still going to the pub. They're still going out for dinner, right? They haven't changed the way they live. Yes, there is a certain amount of people that are really struggling. But once again, through tyranny, or I can't think of the word at the moment, through necessity, the only reason that I stood up, and everyone knows that I was terrified about public speaking for my whole life. I would never, ever want to even get up and talk in front of a crowd, or, I could do it in a group. So through necessity, I just threw myself in the deep end and put my hand up to do so many things that were so out of my comfort zone. And, that I just felt that I had to do that. Now, not everyone's going to do that, but I believe that, to get the numbers, and this is a numbers game. We've said this from day one. And when we set up the Victorian People's Trust, we thought all anyone's interested in is how they can get off a fine. It's all about their money and their back pocket. So we've got to find a way we can bring people to the party, and bring them in and then give them further knowledge by being able to get them off a fine or whatever. And as far as the fines that you're talking about, I've got a unregistered and a speeding fine from 2022 in February, still sitting here. Never interacted with all the follow-up letters. I've got several other ones. I just don't entertain these people. They have absolutely no authority and no jurisdiction. They have no grant of power to be in the roles that they're in whatsoever. And the only reason that they have any of that is through our ignorance and our consent. And if we continue to be ignorant and we continue to consent and play their game, then we're lunatics. That's my opinion. And like I said, I've come to that conclusion in a very short time frame because I live and breathe this 24/7. And I know that 90% of the population or more don't do that. So I comprehend that we've got to meet people where they're at. And I've even reached out to Professor Christopher Neal, who's running for the Senate seat in Victoria under the People's Party, Gerard Rennick, and offered him to come and speak at my place, Frankston. So I'm not telling people what they should or shouldn't do. All I'm saying is go in with informed consent. Go in knowing what you're taking part in. You decide whether you want to continue to support that, continue to support a government that, in my opinion, are involved in genocide, child trafficking, the family law court, breaking up families. This is the system that we're supporting. So be aware of what you're supporting before you go out and support it. That's all I'm putting across.
Yep. So don't support it and let them have their free will. Perfect. Love it.
Very good.
No, it's not free will.
Thank you.
Well, that's exactly what you're saying.
You're not giving it to them.
You're not going to put up any resistance against the current system by even using their own system against them, by putting people in who will put up resistance, then that's what you're giving them straight out. Are they corrupt? Yes, I believe so. Do I agree with what you said about them? Yes, I do. Right? I just have a different tact on the taxing. I came to that understanding about the corporate government a long time ago as well. I also came to the understanding that you can't fight every battle from the outside. You need to be in it sometimes to win it. All right? So in that respect, I mean, there's a lot of people agree with you, Darren, no doubt about it at all. But think about it, all right? Straight out. If you don't want to participate in any way, to offer any resistance on their inside, on the inside fight, then don't. Right? If you want to be a pain in the butt, go and make a difference in the Senate and just make a really interesting picture on the lower house vote, because you're not going to get anywhere really there anyway. So, or do nothing and build our separate economy and do whatever we want, and then watch that corporate government that you've given free rein come in with their troops and do whatever they want to us, because they have free rein, and now they have a piece of title paper which is really totally illegal because it's not signed with the seal or anything like that, but they have a piece of paper that they can use in their corporate courts with their corporate forces to come and take us away and do whatever they want, because we didn't stop that piece of paper from coming out in the first place.
Okay, and look, I'm not saying that we shouldn't do nothing or we shouldn't be doing anything. All I'm saying is that we should be
nothing.
No, it's not. It's
Why?
taking the right action. What the Casey Council have done with having permits now for people to put their car to be able to work on their cars or have multiple cars that aren't registered or whatever, right? I was at that council meeting when there was 350 people there, right? And they shut it down, called the cops in. I was there again the week after and the month after and the month after handing out thingos. Now, Greenie, who's kind of helping out now at My Place Berwick, they were starting to struggle for numbers. The other night, last night, I spoke to him this morning. They had 40 people turned up, and a lot of these people were new people that have joined My Place Berwick that are wanting information and they're wanting leaflets and they're wanting this. So what I'm saying is it's not about supporting. Well, I don't believe we should be supporting their system and the election. I'm not saying that we should be doing nothing. We've got to take the right action, and to me, the right action is educating the masses. And when we get the numbers on board, including the police and every opportunity, the amount of red pilling that I do, I ran in last Sunday morning at our market 2 weeks ago. I walked out the front door to put the sign out the front, and a guy walked down. He had a suit jacket on and jeans, and the suit jacket was open. I seen he had a badge on his belt. So I followed him. I turned around and I followed him down into the coffee shop, and I stood behind him and I filmed him. And he was a federal copper. And he sat there waiting for his coffee. And I said, who are you with? And he said, the police. And I said, yeah, what, you Vic Pol? He goes, no, feds. And I said, we got I said, who's coming to town? Is it Albanese or Dutton? He said, well, I'm not allowed to say, but yeah, we got a politician to come to town. It ended up being Albanese. Right, so I wanted to find out where they were going to be and go and crash the party. Anyway, so he stood there, and so I started to talk to him, and I red pilled him, and I said, mate, haven't you got the message yet? He said, no, they haven't called the election yet. And I said, no, not that message. I said the message to go start arresting all these politicians. I said, you do realise this, and you do realise that the Australian government's registered in Washington DC and the tax office. So I went through the whole thing and red pilling him. And I gave him a lot of information in that 10 minutes. The last comment I gave him when he asked me if I was going to run again this time, because I told him I'd been involved previously. And I said, no, because under the Crimes Act 1995, once you're aware of the fraud and the crime, if you participate, then you're actually a criminal as well. And that kind of, the whole oxygen went out of the whole room at that point, and he never spoke to me again. I stood there for 30 seconds. I thought, well, this conversation's over. And I kind of walked out, waited for my coffee. As he left, I walked back in and I said, have a great day, mate. And he said, well, you too. And but every opportunity, whether it's Vic Pol, feds, local police,
I'm not going to say don't do that.
We've got to slam them with the truth. Now, whether they believe it, it's in their subconscious. And as things start to roll out and more information comes out, they will start to get the picture. This is where our time, I believe, needs to be concentrated on, not running out there spending thousands of dollars on flyers and letterbox drops. If we're going to be doing that, let's do it with the right information, not vote for someone in a criminal organisation, but expose the criminal organisation.
Indeed.
Okay, let me I'm going to come back to a second here. You talked about a particular council that was busily wanting to put through a piece of bylaws that said that they would charge a $400 fee for somebody to service their car in their own driveway. And it got knocked on its head, correct?
No, it's in.
that piece of legislation is still in for that council? I believe I heard it got removed.
I heard it got knocked off last election.
I can't. I won't comment because I'm not 100% sure, to be honest. So I won't say that it is in.
It's been.
Right?
It's
the
been
reason
stopped.
it got removed was because a lot of people stepped up and said, "We don't want you to vote this way, council." Right? But they stepped up. Now, if they had the ability to vote, do you think that they would have said, "We do not want this bill"? Yes or no?
Oh, yes.
I would argue, Vince. I would argue that they have not stepped down completely from this. What they have done, and they're quoted as saying, is they've gone back to reevaluate how they are applying the fines. It's not going to change the fact that there are going to be fines. They're reevaluating what they're doing. And I guarantee you, if you're allowed to change your oil or do a bit of minor maintenance in your front yard and keep 2 cars on the property without fear of them being towed off, there will be no other problems. They'll squeeze so many other things through on the back of that. It won't be an issue to them. So it looks like there's been a win here, but I suspect this is a false win, and that while there is a pause in this local council legislation or rule at the moment.
Slow down. Yeah.
Yeah, slow down.
A little bit of a roadblock. Yeah.
I reckon
see
it's
where
going
I'm
to come
heading
back
with
in
that?
a different form. No, it'll just come back in a different form.
I know,
So-
but it's taken them another 6 or 9 months to come back in a different form. It's giving us more time to go out and do what Darren says. Red pill
And
the people.
Phil said something like that in the chat. Yeah.
But
Gentlemen, it's been a
voting-
very, very interesting chat.
The voting didn't cause that back down. It was a backlash because they brought that draconian measure in. That's what got the people motivated to get out there and get off their fucking couch. Excuse me, get off the couch, all right, and actually do something. And this is what I'm saying. These actions by them.
You're 100% correct, right? That's what got them up. They started to get hurt really badly, right? So I don't disagree with that side of it.
So
But
the change
then
comes
they
from
could have
Vince,
looked
the
at it.
next
Hang on,
local
let me
government
finish,
election.
Carl. Let me finish. They could have looked at it the way you look at it. I'm sorry, that is a corporate entity. That council is a corporate entity, right? Because they're a corporate entity and they're part of that system, I'm not going to do anything to associate or stop them because I can't vote for them in any councillors or anything in the first place. So I'm just going to let them have their free will, right? And then when it all goes to shit, then I'll stand up and get arrested and thrown in jail and whatever else.
And if there are enough people doing that, you will clog the courts, you will clog the jails, you will grind everything to a halt.
And how many people really suffer for it when we could be limiting that and growing our base further purely by getting out and educating?
We won't grow the base without the suffering.
Okay? I beg to differ. If you wish to give them 100% of your vote by not voting, feel free.
Do you believe that? I mean, the biggest move in human history was through the COVID lockdowns. Okay, that has woken so many people up.
True.
Right.
True.
So once again, it's when people get pushed to the limit, they step up to the plate. Right. We haven't had enough people step up to the plate because they were in fear. And these people don't know that these are a corporate government. Now, there's 40 people coming to my place, Berwick, that are going to learn a lot deeper knowledge about who these people are and who they're not, right? So without this draconian measure coming in, we wouldn't have got those people to start to actually get to their line in the sand. And this is what I said about the voice. It's about what I said about every single bill that they're trying to bring in. All they're doing is helping our cause. The quickest way forward is to get the numbers. And the quickest way to get the numbers is to, I mean, we've got probably 10 million people in this country now, half the voting age population that are at a reasonable level of we've had enough. We're not going to take this anymore. Okay? We've got to harness that. And while they keep bringing in acts and statutes and ridiculous laws to aid us at the end of the day, well, let them go. Let them do it. All we've got to do is grab those people, take advantage of the situation, bring them into our communities, and educate them. There's where our role sits, as far as I'm concerned, not supporting and trying to change it from within, because we are so much closer
Darren?
to changing this country by doing that and letting them go about their way than we are doing it the other way. That's my opinion.
I'm not saying not doing it that, but I'm going to ask you, what is the oligarchy?
The oligarchy. That's a good question. I don't know.
You can look at the parliament the same as you can with the kings, queens, etc., and the oligarchy, right? They are the same thing. They are the people at the top of the thing that have all the power, and they do so because they have their armies to do so, right? So the only way that ever comes through, and you've seen that in history, right? French Revolution, etc., and so on. And that's because people hurt, which is exactly what you're talking about, going through that way. I'm not saying we shouldn't do that. All I'm saying is that not voting is not an effective means of putting up resistance. Is telling them, yeah, that's fine. But the oligarchs don't care. As I said, if they only got 20% of the vote, people actually voted, then they will run the government with, because all of those who voted said, we want you. That's 100% of the vote that want them. Right? So you're not putting any spies in, you're not putting any resistance in, you're not running. So I'm not saying you're betraying yourself by voting. My idea of voting is I'm going to try and especially in the Senate, because I can stop my vote before it gets to Liberal, Labor, Teals, Greens. I don't have to give them a vote. If you understand the Senate ticket, you can kill it at that point. But I want to give every possible chance that I can put some sort of resistance or roadblock in the Senate. As I said, lower houses, forget it. All right? But in the Senate, I want to do something so that I have more time to educate more people about what's going on here so that we can build that infrastructure. We can do the extra bits and pieces. I don't want that time frame shortened any more than possible. And by giving them free rein, shortens that time frame. Okay.
You can only educate people that are willing to listen and that are willing to be educated. We've noticed that over the last 4 years. Okay, you can't wake people up. When people wake up and get to that anger stage, like the Casey Council issue, they come looking for answers. At that point, then you have them. You can actually start to explain to them and educate them. You can't educate people that aren't under immense pressure, that aren't at their line in the sand, but they are too comfortable, right? They're comfortably numb. That's the way I see the Australian population. And trust me, I used to be comfortably numb when I was younger and listen to Pink Floyd and all the other music when I was sitting in my mate's caravan. And but the Australian population are comfortably numb. Now that needs to change, and we as a people can't change that. I had a conversation with someone out the front the other day, looking in the front window, reading some of the information I've got on the front window, and it's pretty full on. And I said to her, "What do you think?" And she spoke to me for 10 minutes, but she was not on our page whatsoever. Right? They are fully in the matrix. So the only way that they're going to start to listen and start to take on board the stuff that may or may not be in their subconscious is if they get to their line in the sand. So we've got to wake them out of that comfortable, numb situation. We've got to shake the tree and get the rest of the monkeys out of the tree. And to me,
the line in the sand.
Yeah, the line in the sand is it's different for everybody. For us, It was lockdowns. For them, it was, okay, line up. The government told us to do this. I want to keep my job. I want to go to the pub. I want to go to the footy. So that wasn't their line in the sand.
What about the high prices of food right now? Is that not the line in the sand? How many people are struggling to buy food? How many people are struggling to buy electricity? Right? Yeah, so there's lots and lots of more people coming in our direction, right? Which means that we're taking votes away from the big parties and giving an opportunity to put them towards the smaller party, unless, of course, we tell them not to do that. And
having a 35% no voter turnout is taking voters away from the system.
But what good is it? Because it's 35% of nothing. In maths, that doesn't work. If you have 35% of 17 million people, let's say that's 4 or 5 million people who don't vote, the oligarchy don't care. They still got a 100% mandate from those who did vote.
Correct.
100%. Correct. So you've just given them all the permission, and our resistance for this was zero.
Our resistance will be zero. Our resistance will be zero anyway, and it'll be another 3 years.
Why? Why would it be zero? We had 5 independents block the misinformation bill, right? If they weren't there, and only the Lib Party decided to block it, it would have passed. So
if it was something that they were serious about,
that doesn't hold. That does not hold.
If there was something that they were serious about, they would cross the floor.
Yeah,
not in party politics.
They're not. They're under. They're puppets. They're under the direction of United Nations
because he got out. Because he did cross the floor, and they didn't like it. So, yeah, right. I mean, every piece of resistance we can put in, we should use, and voting is one of those.
And history would tell you that they do, whether it's Antic, whether it's what's his name, Russell Broadbent, whether it's Pauline Hanson, doesn't matter whether it's Rod Cullerton, whoever that goes in there that is against their agenda, that is against the United Nations, will get arseholed out of there very, very quickly. And that is a very, very long road to have any chance of getting anything done. The quickest way, I believe, is get to the bottom, get to the bottom of the barrel, get the people tyrannized, not terrorized, but it's the same thing almost, tyrannized to a point where they say enough is enough. I'm not going to take it anymore. And to me, they're the numbers that we need. And all the time that this is happening, the police are stepping back from executing their orders. They're starting to say, well, this is not right. So the whole thing is flipping by the orders that are coming down from the top and the ridiculousness of those orders. So to me, the minute you get a couple of small wins and people think, well, beautiful, we've got someone, we've got the Ratepayers Association of Victoria, we don't have to do anything after they just corporised all our councils in 1999 after we just voted no, we didn't want a third level of government. Let's set up a Ratepayers Association. Everyone's going to think, beautiful, we've got someone in our corner fighting for us. We don't have to do anything. 20 years later, they've done absolutely zero. This is how they work. We've got an independent that I've seen in the long weekend down in Rosebud and Rye. We went for a drive. Someone Smith, can't think of his first name, big yellow signs. Driving up the freeway to go over to Bacchus Marsh the other day, I seen this massive billboard with this independent, his name up there. Straight away, he's not an independent. The Australian public are not up to speed with the fact that, yes, they said, fuck, well, I'm done. Bloody, I'm not voting Liberal Labor ever again. I'm going to vote for the independent. What they don't realise is that independent is actually Liberal or Labor, right? An independent, and we're running 6 independents in one seat that dilutes the vote, and Liberal Labor are going to get in anyway. So I'm telling you, it's going to be a circus once again. We're going to get absolutely nowhere by taking part in this election. We need to educate. We need to be on the polling booths. That's how we take part in the election, not by supporting a candidate, not by voting, but by actually giving information and knowledge to the candidates and to the general public at large.
Gentlemen, it's been one of the most interesting evenings I've had, and I've muted both your microphones so I can get a bloody word in. It's been a pleasure, and we're going to leave it there for tonight. Darren, thank you for the time you've taken out of your Friday evening. I know it's usually beer drinking time for you, so I appreciate it. And you've put forward some very good points. And equally, Vince has done the same thing. And obviously, it's up for everybody to make up their own mind. Here at the Voice of Freedom, I'll try and give you as many different options and ideas on what you can do as I can, including talking to some of those people who will be running for Senate seats, particularly. And in line with that, on Tuesday night next week, I'll be speaking with Michael O'Neill from iHeart. Whether or not Gerard Rennick will come on this program, I don't know. But certainly a request has been put through channels, so we'll see whether or not he wants to come on and have a chat. You will hear a bit about iHeart from me in the near future, because two people known to many of us are going to be running for iHeart as part of the Senate race. You may choose to support them if they're in your particular state, and if that is the case, all power to them. Once again, Darren, thank you very much. I'll let you go. Vince, I'm going to hang on to you for a minute because I've got something else I want to discuss with you. Have a great weekend, Darren. Cheers. And Vince, I guess I want to show your artwork today. You have been very creative. Ladies and gentlemen, it has been a little while since the Voice of Freedom has had a shirt or a windsheeter or, in fact, anything at all by design that we could show you, and maybe you would like to wear and help support us. We have a new design, and Vince has mocked one up. Okay, I will admit, not terribly thrilling from the front. It does have Voice of Freedom on it, very nice looking t-shirt, yada, 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 but I do like what is on the back. Australia, the land of the fee, and ain't that the case? From high-rise viewing taxes on the Gold Coast if you live 40 stories or above, or even if you live 11 stories above the ground. The tax is incremental depending on how high you go. The governments, state, local and federal, are finding numerous ways to attack us. Fees, charges, they're taking more money out of our pockets than ever before. And despite what Peter Dutton may have said in his budget reply speech and the promises that he alluded to in that, including, I think, halving the petrol excise for 12 months and then reviewing it, so not saying it'll come back on, but reviewing it again in 12 months, creating a national gas bank, so Australians are served best by our own gas, and our gas prices should stay low. Good luck getting the gas companies to lower their gas prices. They'll figure out a way to just keep putting them up like the electricity companies do, and all those renewables working so well. So you can get a Land of the Fee t-shirt with the Voice of Freedom stuck on the front. We might find a few other things that we can put up in the next few weeks, a couple of other t-shirt ideas or logo ideas, and it is coming up to winter, Vince. What are we going to put on beanies, do you think?
Oh, I don't know, but I'm pretty sure we can find some. We've got some beanies available. Just to understand, people, we haven't had this priced yet. That piece of artwork came through yesterday, I think. Was it yesterday, Carl?
Yeah,
might have been the day before. Yeah. And I've just found a shirt that's compatible. Unfortunately, the colors are limited because you can't really put it on a blue one or a black one because it just won't stand out. So it is a bit limited in that respect. I'd also like to say thank you.
Red.
Yeah.
White.
Well, we've only got red and white and a light blue. I might try the light blue. But I'd like to say thank you to Darren, and there's very good conversation. Understand that Darren and I are very much on the same page for just about everything. It's just one area we don't, but does not mean we will not work together on everything else. So
absolutely.
Darren, spirited argument.
No, you've pissed him off. He's left already. So, no, that's the great thing. We're all mates, and we can have these conversations, and we're still all mates at the end of it. Darren and I had a very robust conversation in Echuca, but we're still mates, and nothing's going to change. We are all still fighting the same fight, and as to use a Ricardoism, we're all climbing that hill. We may all be finding different paths from time to time, but we're all going up, and correct. I can see the top of it. I hope you can too. Vince, thanks for everything you do for me and the Voice of Freedom once again. Thanks for coming on tonight, and look forward to chatting with you over the weekend and next week.
Well, I certainly hope that there's some spirited discussion that goes on in the chat underneath this video. Share it out, share it wide, because there's a lot of people who need to hear both sides of that story that just happened. Right?
Yeah,
and
absolutely.
Make up their own mind. So share it, share it, share it. And I'll do this because you want me to.
Very good. Very good indeed. See, he's learning, folks. I don't have to even introduce his backhanded wave anymore. I just wanted to make you aware, folks, that there are plenty of dickheads out on the roads, and occasionally they find themselves in car parks. I've met one of them yesterday, God help us, and there is a reason why car parks are some of the most dangerous places. You can take a car and get into an accident, and that idiot is probably one of the greatest examples of how not to park a car I have ever seen. What a dickhead. I don't know if they tried to do a handbrakey in there and just didn't have the speed up, or trying to slide into two parks. But that, ladies and gentlemen, is one of the greater examples of a dickhead not on the road. They managed to get to a friggin' car park. Have a good weekend.
You let one ant stand up to us, then they all might stand up. Those puny little ants outnumber us 100 to 1. And if they ever figure that out, there goes our way of life. It's not about food. It's about keeping those ants in line. That's why we're going back. Does anybody else want to stay? Let's rock!